Noorsign Books presents Ramadan Miracles, Stories of Faith Found in the Ordinary. The Bread Stamp, Part 1, The Workshop at the End of the Alley. Fatih, Istanbul. Elif is a widow, an artist, and 2 years stuck in grief. Her hands ache, her workshop is silent, and her son wants her to sell. But on a winter afternoon, a Syrian girl will appear at her door, and a forgotten bread stamp will become the key to a new beginning.
The gouge hit the far wall with a hard, ringing clatter. Elif's breath tore in and out of her chest. Her right hand throbbed up to the elbow, each pulse of pain echoing in the small workshop. On the bench in front of her, the round walnut disc lay scarred. Its surface, meant to become a beautiful bread stamp, was a mess of hesitant cuts and ugly trenches. Mehmet's careful design was barely visible under her mistakes. "Useless," she whispered, to the wood, to her hands, to the empty room. I told you I couldn't." Her eyes burned. She pressed the heels of her palms against them, as if she could push the tears back into her skull. That was when she heard it. Not Mehmet's slow, familiar tread, not her son's confident shoes. A lighter sound. A child's foot, hesitating on the threshold, the soft intake of a held breath. Elif dropped her hands and turned. In the doorway of the workshop, framed by the peeling blue paint and the bruised winter light, a girl stood. She was thin, maybe 10. An oversized navy jacket swallowed her narrow shoulders. A faded pink t-shirt showed at the collar. Her hair hung in a tangled curtain to her shoulders, one plait half undone. Gray canvas shoes flopped on her feet, laces missing, one toe poking through. Her dark eyes were not on Elif. They were on the floor, on the curls of walnut shavings scattered under the bench, golden in the slanting light. She looked at them the way a fasting person looks at a tray of fresh Ramadan bread. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The old woman with swollen hands and the child with bare ankles stared at each other across air that smelled of oil and wood, and something else, a hunger Elif couldn't name yet. Elif's voice came out rough. "Yes?" The girl's gaze flicked up, quick and wary. Her Turkish came out twisted by another language. "Ben, bakabilir miyim? Can I look?" The accent was unmistakable. Syrian.
2 days earlier, the workshop had been quiet enough to hear the dust. The first adhan of Fajr had rolled over Fatih like a tide, a dozen minarets calling Allahu Akbar in overlapping waves. From the high window, Elif had listened without moving. She sat on a tall wooden stool, a wool shawl around her shoulders, a glass of cold tea forgotten beside her. Her hands lay in her lap, fingers curled slightly in on themselves, knuckles swollen and pale. In the winter light, they looked like someone else's hands. On the wall above the tools, her own calligraphy hung. Inna maral usri yusra. Indeed, with hardship comes ease. Once she had written that panel in a single sure breath. Now the words sat on her like a stone. The workshop slept around her. Walnut shavings lay in drifts under the benches. Tools lined the pegboard in perfect rows. 30 years of Mehmet's order. On the back table, a half-finished Al-Quran stand gaped open, its edges sharp, its arabesques only penciled. She watched the light crawl down the opposite wall for the 1,000th morning since his death. The door creaked. "Anne?" Her son's voice. "Come in, Khan." He crossed the old floor in polished shoes, cologne and Bosphorus wind clinging to his coat. He stood beside her, looking out at the wet cobblestones and the street cats hunched over a bag of bread. "Ramadan in 3 days, as it has been since we first met." He set a folded sheaf of papers by her forgotten tea. "What is it?" she asked, not touching them. "An offer. developer in Nishantasi. They're buying properties in Fatih. Restore the fronts, modernize the backs. They want this building. The numbers swam when she glanced at them. More than generous. The neighborhood is changing, Khan. This place is, he searched for the word, wasted on dust and ghosts. It's not wasted, she answered quietly. You don't use it, Anne, he said, not unkindly. Baba didn't for 2 years before his voice caught. You just sit. You could be near us, near Layla. He knew where to press. Her granddaughter's soft hands, her baby shampoo hair. The ache in Elif's chest matched the ache in her joints. I have a nice apartment, she said, on this side. It's old, no elevator. You climb flea flights every day. It keeps me humble. He sat opposite her, looking suddenly like his father in the lines around his eyes. You taught me nothing is permanent but Allah, he said. Not even buildings. Baba is not in these walls. He's in the stone dust, she replied, in the oil on those handles, in that half-finished rakhla. They stared at each other, love and stubbornness filling the space. At least look, he said, tapping the offer. Ramadan is coming. Start fresh after Eid. We can help you move what you want. Baba's. I'll look, she cut in. Not today. He kissed her head, murmured an early Ramadan greeting, and left. The door closed. The workshop exhaled.
The papers lay like a white stone. She ignored them. Instead, she walked, knees protesting, to the table where Mehmet's unfinished El-Quran stand waited. Above it, a thin cardboard folder leaned out of place. Mehmet never left folders crooked. She reached up, pulled it down, opened the crackling spine. Design spilled into her lap. Circles within circles, geometric rosettes, penciled ratios, numbers. On one page, in his neat script, Pide damgası, bread stamp, and on the last sheet, a complete 12-petaled rosette, a band around it penciled with clumsy thuluth. Barakallahu lakum. Beneath it, his note. Elif's design. She'll draw it when she's ready. Her thumb bent the paper's edge. 2 years ago, at the kitchen table, he had pushed these toward her between plates of olives and cheese. Look, he'd said, eyes bright. We'll make a bread stamp. You design the script, I carve. Imagine, Bismillah pressed into the bread we break our fast with. Bread is bread, she'd snapped, tired and aching. He'd gone still. I'm asking you, he'd said softly, to try, because it would mean something. To make it together. Not today, she'd muttered. I'm tired. 40 minutes after he closed the door, he was gone. Now she held his last request, written in pencil. Her knees nearly gave. She sat, folder in her lap, the workshop spinning slowly around her. I wasn't ready, she whispered to the emptiness. You didn't wait.
The walnut disc waited on the lower shelf. Mehmet had planed it smooth, round as a full moon. Elif lifted it with both hands and set it on the bench. The grain glowed warm in the light, swirling like fingerprints. She picked up one of Mehmet's pencils. It felt foreign for a heartbeat, then strangely familiar, like a cousin's hand. On the paper design, his clumsy letters circled the rosette. Barakallahu lakum. Around them, in his handwriting, Elif's design. She'll draw it when she's ready. Her fingers shook. Still, she set the pencil against the margin and corrected the curve of his heavy ba. The line came out wobbly but true. She glanced at the panel on the wall. Inna ma'al usri yusra. With hardship, ease. The words felt less like an accusation, more like a dare. I will do it, she said aloud. I will finish it before Eid al-Fitr. She didn't know if she meant for herself, for Mehmet, or for the Lord she hadn't spoken to except in anger. It didn't matter. She took a shallow gouge from the pegboard. It was heavier than her calligraphy pens, the handle thick, made to be gripped, not balanced. Her fingers closed around it stiffly. "Bismillah," she murmured, the word dry in her mouth. "For you," she added under her breath. The first cut went wild. The blade jumped, biting deep, tearing the grain off the careful circle. An ugly, pale scar ripped the walnut. She hissed, pulled back, pain flaring in her knuckles. The second cut wobbled differently. The third was too shallow. Each attempt carved another wrong line into the wood. By al-Asr, the disc looked like a battlefield. The rosette was a ghost under random trenches. Her hands were numb stones at the ends of her arms. Sweat dampened her scarf. The developer's offer curled at the edge of the bench, forgotten. She dropped the gouge. It bounced, rolled, nearly fell. Her patience snapped. She snatched it and hurled it at the wall. Metal rang on plaster. The cat on the sill bolted. "Useless," she said again, voice shaking. "I told you I couldn't." Tears blurred the wounded wood. She pressed her palms into her eyes. And then, a scuff at the door. A breath. She turned.
The girl with the tangled hair, the bare ankles, the Syrian accent stood staring at the wood curls like they were memories. "You can look," Elif said, her voice flatter than she felt. The girl stepped in as if crossing a border. The smell of damp wool and cheap soap drifted with her. She crouched by the off-cut crate, picked up a single curl of walnut, and lifted it to her nose. She inhaled, eyes closing. The gesture was so raw that Elif felt she was intruding on someone's private dhikr. "Do you want tea?" Elif heard herself ask. Habit spoke before her grief. "Or bread? I have bread from yesterday." Yasmin opened her eyes, considered, then nodded once. In the tiny back room, Elif moved on autopilot. Water on the gas burner, yesterday's lentil soup warmed, bread sliced, a squeeze of lemon, a drizzle of oil, 2 chipped bowls, 2 spoons. "Gel," she called. Yasmin sat on the edge of the chair as if ready to flee. When Elif said, "Eat," she ate like someone trained by war, fast, neat, wasting nothing. "What's your name?" Elif asked when the hunger softened in the girl's face. "Yasmin." "Elif. Where is your family, Yasmin?" "Evda, Terlabashi." The word came out bent. "The other side of the Golden Horn. Far." "And your father?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Yasmin held up the curl of walnut still in her fingers. "Baba," she said simply. Understanding clicked. "Carpenter," Elif said. Yasmin nodded. Silence stretched. 2 women, one small, one old, sat at a narrow table with lentil soup between them and a dead craftsman hanging in the air. "You can come again if you like," Elif said finally, forcing nonchalance into her voice, "to smell the wood." Yasmin's face flickered, hope fighting habit. "Sahiha? Really?" "Really," Elif answered. "Tomorrow, after school." The girl nodded. Before she left, she paused by the bench and looked at the scarred walnut disc. Her gaze lingered on the messy cuts and faint rosette. She did not touch it. She did not ask. Then she was gone, swallowed by the blue dusk of the alley. Elif stood in the doorway, fingers throbbing, watching the empty cobblestones. Behind her, the ruined bread stamp waited, for the first time in 2 years, under another pair of unseen eyes. Ramadan arrived with rain and the smell of bread. On the first fasting afternoon, Elif's workshop was warm, dry, and full of dust motes dancing in pale light. The walnut disc lay on the bench again, not perfect, but improved. Over the last 2 days, she had redrawn the rosette properly, her pencil steadying with each line. The cuts, though, still ugly.
Her routine had settled. Work between al-Dhuhr and al-Asr, wash, pray words that landed heavy, walk home through streets waking for iftar, lie awake at night, hungry for something food couldn't touch. On the second day of Ramadan, just before al-Asr, Yasmin appeared again. She slipped in without knocking, hand on the frame, eyes scanning Elif, the bench, the disc. "You came," Elif said, startled at the small flare of relief in her chest. "I am also fasting," Yasmin added, almost defensively. "Ben de oruçluyum." "Of course you are." Elif's lips twitched. "Sit there," she said, pointing to Mehmet's old stool, "if you like." Yasmin sat, hands folded, eyes glued to the walnut. Elif tried another cut. The gouge skittered. The line wobbled. Yasmin flinched at the sound. "Have you ever worked with wood?" Elif asked, sharper than she meant. "Baba caught me, a little. He say girls must know. Wood is nafis, beautiful." "He was right," Elif murmured, "if it behaves." She tried again. Her knuckles screamed. "Pick that up," she said finally, nodding toward where the tool had fallen into shavings. "Carefully, they bite." Yasmin crossed the room. She smelled of damp stairwells and something floral. She picked up the gouge by the handle, thumb braced, wrist loose. Exactly right. "Here," Elif began, reaching to correct her, and stopped. The girl's grip was already correct. "Where did your father work?" Elif asked. "Souk, market, Aleppo." Yasmin's fingers traced an invisible stall. "He make chairs, toys, birds." "Birds," Elif repeated. Without waiting for permission, Yasmin set the gouge at the penciled circle and pushed. The cut was short, 3 centimeters, but it was clean, true. The wood curl fell in a perfect spiral. Elif watched it land at her feet. "You come here every day after school?" she asked slowly. "If you say I don't come, I don't," Yasmin said quickly. "I'm not saying that," Elif replied. Her voice felt rusty. "I'm saying, if you come, you work. This is an atelier, not a playground." "Atelier," Yasmin repeated. "I will teach you to hold tools, to feel the grain, not to cut off your fingers. You will help me. My hands," she flexed them and winced, "are not what they were. Maybe yours can do what mine cannot." Yasmin looked at her, then at the wood. "Like Baba's hands," she said softly. "Like yours," Elif corrected, "and his." The girl's face turned solemn. She nodded once. "Okay," she said. "Okay," Elif echoed. Something clicked into place in the quiet room, like a joint finally finding its socket, and the unfinished bread stamp, scarred and waiting, had just gained an apprentice.
You've been listening to Ramadan Miracles, a Noorsign Books original. In the quiet of a workshop, 2 souls, one bowed by loss, the other shaped by war, find a common language in wood and memory. Sometimes the path forward isn't found by looking ahead, but by honoring what was left behind. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next miracle. Visit noorsignbooks.com to join our community and get the full collection. Jazakumullah khairan.